Our intro music is provided by Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com.
You're listening to Night Dreams Radio with Gary Anderson.
Hey, that is me. Here it is, a beautiful weather here in Gig Harbor after a whole 2 weeks of lousy weather. We've had wind, we had power outages, we had snow, we've had ice, and today it's in the mid-40s, blue skies, and my motorcycle is in the man cave, and I've been working on the show all day, and I wanted to ride. Hey, on the fake news tonight, okay, Coinbase said that they're going to release the data to the IRS of 13,000 users. Well, guess what? Audit time at the IRS. Coca-Cola says it's going to start cutting jobs. And the chief of the U.S. Air Force warns, Kevin, that there's going to be war in space. You know that? In the next few years. So that's kind of has me kind of worried there.
Well, what kind of war in space are you talking about?
They didn't say. They just said that be prepared the next year or so of war, maybe in space with the Air Force. So, hey, okay, Kevin, just remember, it's all fake news.
Right?
Yeah. Hey, tonight, Kevin, we got a great guest on the show, and I'm going to introduce her just in a second, and I think it's going to be a fun night tonight. What do you think?
Well, I can't wait to start the show and have a great time.
Okay. So I'm going to bring the guest on right now. Hey, are you there?
Yes.
Hey, how's your day going?
It's actually nighttime.
Oh, that's right. You're in what, Florida?
I'm in Florida, but I used to be in LA.
Well, okay, if you were in Florida and you used to be in LA, where did you get that accent?
I'm Danish.
Danish. Oh, wow. I like that accent.
Thank you. I've been all over.
You've been all over the world?
Yeah.
Any place exciting and any place you really liked besides the United States and the country you came from?
Well, I love Switzerland. That's where I also grew up. I lived in Alaska for 10 years. And I didn't live in Tahiti, but that's one of my favorite places.
Oh, wow. Yeah. One of the guests I just had on was in Jamaica and Tahiti, and he said he loved it. He's a close to number one recording star in folk music in Canada. And,
oh, wow.
Yeah, and he said he just loves it there. The people are so generous and warm and real.
Yeah, yeah.
And poor.
In Jamaica?
Yeah.
Yeah. I've been there twice. It's really, really, it's something else. But it's weird because when you get to Jamaica, I've always loved reggae, but once I got there, like suddenly every single lyric made so much sense now. Like you really understand the struggle and just everything that they're going through that's put through their music, and you just appreciate it that much more now.
Oh, yeah. You know what I like about their music? I love it. It just, you can be in a real depressed mood and you hear some reggae music and it just, to me, it just uplifts me more than...
Exactly.
Yeah, more than anything.
Well, and it's always consistent, it's not talking about cars or shootings or, like hip hop. It just has a very even, you can never disappoint. There's pretty much like no bad reggae song.
Oh, yeah. So, hey, okay, let's get off about you, okay? Why don't you tell everybody your name, what you do for a living, and let's go from there.
Okay, my name is Valentina Lombard. And I am a psychic medium. So that is what I do. That's what I've been doing the last, probably I started in the paranormal about 8 years ago. And then from there, it just naturally progressed into doing psychic mediumship. So that's what I devote all my life and time to now.
Okay. When did you kind of notice, it's always something that draws people into the paranormal. In my case, I ran into, a UFO back in the mid-'70s with my ex-wife, one of the ex-wives. And then with a friend of mine who's a medical doctor, we were up in Canadian Rockies and ran into a Bigfoot. So that had me convinced there's things out there in the paranormal. So, I mean, I've been hooked on it for the last 40 years. That tells you how old I am.
Yeah, no, I won't even reveal my age. But yeah, back in this, well, if I give a year, then I've said it.
Yeah, but you're young. I saw your pictures.
Nah, yeah. When I lived in Alaska, my father actually worked for the police station, and he responded to a call of some tourists that had been out on the ocean, which was, of course, frozen over and had received third-degree burns on half of their face after looking at this bright light.
Oh, wow.
So I asked him, I said, "Oh, Dad, can I come along in the police cruiser because I have to see this?" I was about, 12 or 14, 12, 13, 14. And we're driving along the Arctic Ocean, which is just this vast ocean that freezes solid in the winter. And all of a sudden I look over and I just see this little red slit of a light. And I'm like, oh, my God, that's it. And right as I notice it, it just goes up into the air, no sound, nothing, just disappeared at light speed practically. And that was that. And that was the beginning of me believing that there was something else. That definitely, it always takes something occurring to somebody before that they really believe. It takes that self-experience. And so after that, then I believed in UFOs and otherworldly things, and then the mediumship and the ghosts and everything, or at least afterlife, began about 23 years ago when I first got my gifts.
Uh-huh.
And then I've always thought of, I had a poltergeist visit me when I was 13 going into, I guess, 12 going into 13.
Okay, wait. Okay. Now,
yeah.
let's backtrack here on a little bit. Okay,
Yeah.
You had, when you were, 12, 13, 14, a poltergeist visit you? Why don't you tell us about it? Explain it. Tell us about it. I think everybody out there would be happy to hear about it. I do have to warn you, we are heard in about 116 countries. We have a huge listenership, and when we're not live, the show is going to be put up as a podcast for the next 30 days. So you're going to have thousands of people that are going to have heard this show. Plus, there's a lot of truckers out there. So I want to say hi to the truckers out there that listen to the show.
Hello, truckers. Beep, beep.
Okay, I did my plug.
So I was, I guess it was 12, and this was again in Alaska, and I was laying in my bed, and all of a sudden I heard this knocking in the wall, and the only thing that separated my bedroom from my parents was this, back in the 70s, you had these horrible wood paneling. So I went and talked to my mother, and I said, did you knock on the wall? And she said no. So I went back to bed. Next night, same thing. It was just usually shortly after I went to bed, which for me, my mother was strict, was about 8 p.m. And it continued, and each night I would run in and say, what do you want? Why do you keep knocking on the wall? And again, it was always no, I didn't do it. My mother was busy watching the telly. So this continued for 2 weeks, and pretty soon I stopped going in there and asking her because it didn't make sense that knocking was coming from inside the wall right where my bed was. So I kind of got used to it, and each night I go to bed and I think, okay, here comes that knocking again. Well, after 2 weeks, on the final night, there was a knock, and then it ended with this very loud explosion. And the whole time, my mother never heard anything, which was also quite odd. But
was it loud knocking?
Yeah, it was like a little tiny person was inside, in between like the 4-inch wall, and knocking. And it was just, there was no, because the common wall was between my bedroom and my parents. So if it wasn't her, there's no reason there should be knocking inside the wall. So this continued for 2 weeks, and by the 14th day, I told you, there was this little knock and then this huge explosion. That's like it's the hardest knock you've ever heard, but it also had like an explosive sound to it. It sounded very angry. And then that was it. And then the next night I thought, okay, here we go again. But for some reason I figured that last one sounded so final, I don't think they'll be knocking again. And I listened and nothing ever came again. So it wasn't until I did some research, and back then there weren't many books on the paranormal. There was like maybe 3 books, and I looked up poltergeist, and poltergeists seem to attract themselves to children that don't really want to grow up or go into adulthood, which was, in my case, the problem at the time. So I may have kinetically manifested it myself because of the lack of wanting to go into adulthood. But that was the end of that, and that was the beginning of me being open to other possibilities and getting my hands on any book I could and reading it. And so that was the beginning of paranormal.
Okay, so you didn't have things like flying around in your bedroom or things moving around?
No. I know it. You know, poltergeist activity has many different degrees of what they can do. For this case, at least there wasn't projectile. It was just sounds, which they're also able to produce. So yeah, this was sounds, knocking.
What did when you told your parents about it? How did they, respond to it? Out of curiosity.
Well, my mother just kept watching television, and because she had this weird thing, she had a really big room and a big giant bed, and whenever she wanted my attention, she would usually throw a sock on the wall, and I would hear that, but a sock is soft and it doesn't sound anything like knuckles. Uh-huh. So she just kept saying, "No, I didn't do it," and I knew she didn't because her thing was throwing a sock on the wall, so a rolled up sock, in a ball. So I knew that wasn't her, but there was no other explanation because it was coming from inside the wall, and there's nothing in the wall.
No, unless you have critters running around the wall, but doing it.
Yeah, but in 80 below zero, there's absolutely no way. We don't even have flies where we lived in Alaska because it's so cold.
Oh yeah,
like nothing exists. So there's absolutely nothing else that could be doing that, and like clockwork every single night.